Welcome back to the Affair Chronicles. We appreciate you tuning in. Today, we have another captivating story, and we hope it keeps you intrigued. Let's dive right in. Nathan Reynolds' phone buzzed in the middle of a project meeting. He glanced at the screen, noticed Maria's name, and felt a chill. The message was brief, but troubling. Call me ASAP. It's about Emily. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway, his mind racing. The fluorescent lights seemed suddenly harsh, reflecting the tension in his gut. He dialed Maria's number. "What's going on?" Nathan asked, his voice steady but low. Maria's response was grim. "I saw Emily in Los Angeles with Ryan Morgan. They were at the beach." Nathan's world shifted. He tightened his grip on the phone, keeping his tone composed. "Are you sure? Positive? I'm sorry. Thanks for telling me," Nathan said, his mind already shifting. "I need to get back to my meeting." He ended the call, taking a deep breath. The betrayal stung, but he pushed it aside. Work awaited. He adjusted his tie and re-entered the conference room with an impassive expression. That evening, Nathan returned home to find Emily in the kitchen. She looked up from her phone, flashing a practiced smile. "How was your trip?" he asked casually, watching her closely. Emily launched into a story of tedious conferences and late nights at the hotel bar. Her lies flowed effortlessly, each one a fresh wound. Nathan simply nodded, his face a mask of neutrality. "Sounds exhausting," he replied. "I've got some work to catch up on." He retreated to his home office, locking the door behind him. Only then did he allow himself a moment of anger, fists clenched as he resisted the urge to slam them into the wall. But no! Control was essential now. Moves had to be made. Over the following weeks, Nathan became a master of compartmentalization. By day, he threw himself into his work, impressing his superiors on a high-stakes flood control project. His colleagues marveled at his focus, unaware of the turmoil within. At night, he meticulously gathered evidence. Luke Carter, a discreet private investigator, delivered detailed reports that painted a damning picture. A long-term affair, complete with time-stamped photos and videos that turned Nathan's stomach. Meanwhile, Emily grew bolder. Her late nights at the office became routine, her disdain for Nathan barely masked, confident he was none the was it. If she noticed the steely resolve in his eyes, she gave no sign. Their son, Ethan, felt the tension at home. Nathan saw the confusion and worry in his eyes. It took every bit of self-control not to tell Ethan the truth, to expose Emily's betrayal. But Nathan held back, maintaining a facade of normalcy to protect his son. One night, as Ethan headed upstairs, he looked back at his parents, worry etched on his young face. Nathan felt a surge of protective anger. Emily's betrayal was painful enough, but to shake their son's sense of security? Unforgivable. Nathan knew he needed guidance. He arranged a meeting with Peter Franklin, a seasoned divorce attorney. They met discreetly in a coffee shop, where Peter listened carefully as Nathan explained the situation, nodding as he went on. When Nathan finished, Peter leaned back, a glint of respect in his eyes. "You've handled this well. Most clients come to me in a rage. You've kept your head and collected solid evidence. That gives us options." Together, they devised a meticulous strategy, focusing on asset protection and securing primary custody of Ethan. Peter laid out the necessary legal steps, his tone professional and determined. He saw in Nathan a client worth fighting for. As they wrapped up, Peter gave Nathan a steady look. "Some men in your position try to forgive." Nathan's response was immediate, his voice cold. "There's nothing to forgive. Only actions and consequences." Peter nodded, satisfied. They shook hands, united in purpose. The next step was even more personal. Nathan reached out to his sister, Lillian, a child psychologist. They met for lunch, and the concern in her eyes was clear the moment she sat down. "What's wrong?" she asked directly. Nathan took a deep breath and told her everything. Lillian listened in silence, her expression shifting from shock to sorrow. When he finished, she reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "I'm so sorry, Nate," she said softly. Then with determination, "What do you need from me?" "Advice," Nathan replied, "on how to minimize the impact on Ethan." and I may need your help preparing him for what's ahead. Lillian nodded, her professional side taking over. We'll need to tread carefully. Build a support system for him. I can assist with that and strategies for talking to him. They spent the next hour planning ways to shield Ethan from the worst of the fallout. As they said goodbye, Lillian hugged her brother. You're doing the right thing, she whispered. Stay strong. With legal and familial support in place, Nathan focused on practical matters. He discreetly transferred assets, set up new accounts Emily couldn't access, and rented a nearby apartment, ensuring it would feel like home for Ethan. At home, he maintained the appearance of normalcy, joining in small talk with Emily, attending Ethan's soccer games, even enduring a dinner party with Emily's co-workers, including Ryan Morgan. Watching Emily and Ryan interact, with their shared glances and private jokes, Nathan felt a cold anger but harnessed it, fueling his resolve. Every smirk, every casual touch was another nail in the coffin of their marriage. As he helped clean up after the party, Emily sidled up to him in the kitchen. She was slightly tipsy, her guard down. You've been so distant lately, she murmured, running a hand down his arm. Is everything okay? Nathan looked at her, truly looked at her. He saw the woman he had once loved, the mother of his child, and yet he saw a stranger, someone capable of unimaginable deceit. Gently, he removed her hand. Just tired, he replied. Big project at work. Emily's eyes narrowed for a brief moment, but quickly masked it with a smile. Poor baby, she cooed. Why don't you come to bed? I'll help you unwind for a bit. Nathan felt a pang, not of desire, but of the urge to confront her, to throw her infidelity in her face. But no, the timing wasn't right. He had to think of Ethan. Thanks, he said, forcing a smile. But I've got an early meeting. I'll crash in the guest room tonight. He noticed a flash of anger in her eyes, quickly concealed. She shrugged, feigning indifference. Suit yourself. As he lay in the guest bed that night, Nathan stared at the ceiling, thinking about the life he had built, the promises made and broken. He thought of Ethan, innocent and unaware of the impending storm. He thought about the uncertain future, but one he knew was necessary. Sleep eluded him, but that was all right. There was work to do and plans to finalize. The next move was Emily's, and he would be ready. In the stillness of the night, as his soon-to-be ex-wife slept in their marital bed, Nathan Reynolds braced himself for the battle ahead. He was a man betrayed but not defeated, and he was determined that, when the dust settled, he and Ethan would emerge stronger. The wheels were in motion, and there was no turning back. Nathan sat at his desk, staring at the fabricated emergency project in Seattle displayed on his computer screen, a carefully constructed excuse that would give him the space he needed to execute his plan. He hit print, leaning back in his chair, allowing himself a grim smile. Emily's voice drifted up from downstairs, sugary as she talked on the phone. Probably with Ryan, he thought, jaw tightening. He took a deep breath, masking his expression before heading downstairs. Hey, he said, holding up the printout. Got a minute? Emily quickly ended her call, her eyes flicking to the paper in his hand. What's up? Emergency project in Seattle. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. A brief glimmer of excitement flashed in her eyes, quickly masked with feigned concern. 2 weeks? That's a long time. What about Ethan? Nathan shrugged. You'll manage. It's a big opportunity for the firm. Can't pass it up. Emily nodded, her mind clearly racing with possibilities. Of course we'll be fine. When do you leave? Tomorrow morning. Early flight. As he turned to go, Emily called after him. I'll miss you. He paused, not looking back. Yeah, me too. The next morning, Nathan left the house before dawn, suitcase in hand. He drove to his new apartment, feeling a weight lift as he shut the door behind him. The place was modest but comfortable, and more importantly, it was a fresh start. He set up his laptop on the kitchen counter, connecting to the hidden camera feeds he'd installed in the house. It felt invasive but necessary. He needed undeniable proof of Emily's betrayal. It didn't take long. That very evening, Ryan's car pulled into the driveway. Nathan watched as Emily greeted him at the door, drawing him into a passionate kiss before they even stepped inside. His stomach churned, but he forced himself to keep watching. Over the following days, Nathan split his time between monitoring the feeds and preparing for the fallout. He met with Ethan's teachers, explaining the separation with Emily and emphasizing the need for stability and support for Ethan during this time. Mrs. Carter, Ethan's math teacher, looked at Nathan sympathetically. Ethan's a wonderful kid. We'll keep an eye on him, make sure he's okay. Nathan nodded, grateful. Thank you. I'm doing everything I can to minimize the impact on him. These things are never easy, Mrs. Carter replied. Don't worry, Mr. Reynolds. We've got your back. Similar conversations with Ethan's other teachers and his soccer coach left Nathan feeling more reassured. He was building a support network for his son, preparing for the coming storm. Meanwhile, the footage from the house grew more incriminating. Emily and Ryan's behavior became increasingly brazen. They lounged by the pool, drank Nathan's expensive whiskey, and even slept in the master bedroom. One evening, Nathan watched as they sat at the dining room table, laughing over takeout. God, it's nice not having to pretend, Emily said, refilling their wine glasses. Nathan's so dull. Always working, always serious. Ryan chuckled. Well, someone's got to pay for this nice house. They clinked glasses, laughing. Nathan's hand tightened on his mouse, the plastic creaking under the pressure. He forced himself to relax. Soon, they'd face the consequences of every moment of disrespect. The day before his supposed return, Nathan met Lillian at a nearby cafe. His sister looked worried, but resolute. Are you sure about this, Nate? She asked. It's going to be tough on Ethan. Nathan nodded. I'm sure. He deserves the truth, and I want him to understand why things are changing. Lillian reached across the table, squeezing his hand. All right, I prepared some age-appropriate materials for explaining what's happening. Let him set the pace, okay? Don't push too hard. I won't, Nathan promised. He checked his watch. It's time. They drove to Ethan's school in silence. As they waited in the parking lot, Nathan felt a blend of dread and resolve. This would be hard but necessary. Ethan emerged from the school, backpack slung over one shoulder. He spotted Nathan's car and broke into a run, his face lighting up. It made Nathan's heart ache. Dad! Ethan called as he climbed into the back seat. You're back early, Ethan said, a hint of confusion in his voice as he spotted his aunt. Aunt Lillian? What's going on? Nathan met his son's gaze in the rearview mirror. We need to talk, buddy. It's important. They drove to a nearby park, finding a quiet spot away from the playground. Ethan's initial excitement faded, replaced by a nervous energy. He kept glancing between Nathan and Lillian, clearly sensing the gravity of the situation. Nathan knelt in front of his son, taking a deep breath. Ethan, you know things have been tense at home lately? Ethan nodded slowly. You and Mom, it seems like you're always upset. You're right, Nathan said softly. And I owe you an explanation. Your mom, she's been spending time with someone else. Someone who's not part of our family. Ethan's brow furrowed. Like a friend? Nathan shook his head. No, buddy. More than a friend. She's with this person. Do you understand what that means? Ethan's eyes widened, then filled with tears. She has a boyfriend? But you're married. I know, Nathan said, his voice steady but full of sadness. What she's doing is wrong, Ethan. It's called cheating, and it's hurtful to our family. Ethan flung himself into Nathan's arms, sobbing. Nathan held him close, meeting Lillian's supportive gaze over Ethan's shoulder. She nodded encouragingly, mouthing, You're doing great. When Ethan's tears finally subsided, Nathan gently pulled back. I need to show you something, okay? It might be hard to see, but I think it's important for you to understand. He pulled out his phone and opened a carefully edited video. It showed Emily and Ryan together, their intimacy clear even in the innocuous clips Nathan had selected. Ethan watched in silence, his young face a mixture of confusion, hurt, and anger. That's Mr. Morgan, he said finally, his voice quiet. From Mom's work. Nathan nodded. Yes, they've been spending a lot of time together. Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then, in a small voice, he asked, What's going to happen now? Nathan took a deep breath. Well, that's part of why we're here. Things are going to change, Ethan. Your mom and I, we can't be married anymore. Not after this. I'm going to move out, and you'll spend time with both of us." To Nathan's surprise, Ethan looked almost relieved. "Is that why you got the new apartment? I saw the lease in your office." Nathan blinked, then chuckled softly. "You're observant, aren't you?" "Yes, that's why. I wanted to have a place ready for us." Ethan nodded thoughtfully, then asked hesitantly, "Can I, can I come with you? I don't want to stay with Mom right now." Nathan felt a surge of love and protectiveness. "Of course, buddy. In fact, that's the plan. We're going to go home, pack some of your things, and head over there." He paused, making sure he had Ethan's full attention. "But I need to talk to your mom and Mr. Morgan. It might get a little intense. I want you to go up to your room and pack, okay? Don't come down until I call for you." Ethan nodded solemnly. "Okay, Dad. Love you." Nathan pulled him into another hug. "I love you too, Ethan. More than anything." As they drove back home, Nathan felt a calm resolve settle over him. The hardest part was done. Ethan knew the truth and was on board with the plan. Now, it was time for the confrontation he had been preparing for. Ryan's car was already in the driveway when they arrived. "Perfect." Nathan turned to Ethan. "Remember the plan? Okay. Go straight to your room and start packing. I'll come get you when it's time to go." Ethan nodded, his jaw set in a determined expression that mirrored Nathan's own. As they entered the house, Ethan went upstairs while Nathan made his way to the back patio. Emily and Ryan were lounging by the pool, drinks in hand. They both froze when they saw him, their faces a comical blend of shock and fear. "Nathan!" Emily exclaimed, scrambling to her feet. You're home early." Nathan smiled coldly. Evidently, Ryan stood up, attempting to appear confident. "Now, Nathan, this isn't what it looks like." "Oh, really?" Nathan interrupted, his voice dangerously calm. "Because it looks like my wife is having an affair with her coworker in my own home." "Please," Emily snapped, her shock shifting to anger. "How dare you spy on me? This is an invasion of privacy." Nathan laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Privacy? In my house? Paid for with my money? That's rich, Emily. Almost as rich as the evidence I've gathered these past few weeks." He pulled out his phone, playing a carefully selected video compilation of their affair. Emily and Ryan watched, horror spreading across their faces as their voices filled the air, damning them with each word. "You had no right," Emily hissed, but her bravado was weakening. "I had every right," Nathan replied. "As your husband, as Ethan's father, I had every right to protect my family from your selfish actions." Sensing the tide turning, Ryan tried to distance himself. "Emily, I think I should go." "Oh no," Nathan said, his tone dangerously composed. "You're going to want to stick around for this next part." He pulled out a thick envelope, tossing it onto the patio table. "Divorce papers, Emily. I'm sure you'll find the terms enlightening." Emily snatched up the envelope, her hands trembling as she read. Her face went pale. "This is absurd. You can't possibly think a judge will agree to this." "Oh, I think they will," Nathan said coolly. "Especially when they see evidence of how you've been misusing company funds for your little rendezvous." Ryan's head jerked up. "What?" Nathan smirked. "Yes, your creative accounting caught my eye. Hotel rooms, flights, gifts, all charged to the company card." Ryan turned to Emily, his expression now one of betrayal. "You said those expenses were approved. Do you realize what this could do to my career?" Emily's composure finally shattered. I didn't think. That's obvious." Nathan cut in, his voice ice cold. "You didn't think about anyone but yourselves. Not about me, not about Ethan, not about your jobs or your reputations." As if on cue, they heard footsteps on the stairs. Ethan appeared in the doorway with a packed bag, his young face masked with hurt and disappointment. As he looked at his mother, "Ethan," Emily breathed, "Sweetheart, I can explain." "Don't bother," Ethan said, his voice small but resolute. "I don't want to hear it." He walked over to Nathan, taking his father's hand. Nathan squeezed it gently, a silent show of support. "We're leaving now," Nathan said. "Ethan will be staying with me for the foreseeable future. Your lawyer can contact mine about visitation." As they turned to go, Emily called out, her voice breaking. Nathan, please. We could talk about this. We can work it out. Nathan paused, looking back at the woman he had once loved. Now, all he felt was pity and disgust. There's nothing to work out, Emily. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. He and Ethan walked out of the house, leaving Emily and Ryan to face the wreckage of their choices. As they drove away, Ethan reached over and squeezed Nathan's hand. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. They were in this together. Nathan felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them away. There would be time for emotion later. Right now, he needed to be strong for his son. They had a new life to build, and he was determined to make it a good one. As they pulled up to the apartment building, Ethan looked up at it with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Is this home now? He asked. Nathan nodded. For now, buddy. It's a fresh start for both of us. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said, I'm glad I'm with you, Dad. Nathan felt his heart swell. Despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal, he knew in that moment that they were going to be okay. They had each other, and that was what mattered most. Emily Joy sat in the plush office of Bridget Hawthorne, her newly hired attorney. The room reeked of expensive leather and desperation. Emily's once perfect manicure was chipped, her designer outfit wrinkled. She'd spent the last week alternating between crying fits and rage-fueled outbursts. Bridget, a shark in a tailored suit, studied the divorce papers with narrowed eyes. This is quite the scorched earth approach your husband's taken. Emily's laugh was bitter. That's Nathan for you. Always so thorough. We can work with this, Bridget said, a predatory gleam in her eye. We'll paint him as controlling, emotionally abusive. Courts eat that up these days. But he wasn't. Emily began, then quickly corrected herself. I mean, yes, of course, he was terrible. Bridget's smile was cold. That's the spirit. Now tell me everything. And I do mean everything. We need ammunition. Across town, Nathan sat with Peter Franklin in a far less ostentatious office. The walls were lined with law books, the desk cluttered with case files. It spoke of a man who prioritized results over appearances. She's hired Bridget Hawthorne, Peter said, his tone grim. She's a pit bull, specializes in high-conflict divorces. Nathan nodded, unsurprised. I expected as much. Emily's never been one to go down without a fight. They'll try to smear you, Peter warned. Paint you as the villain. Let them try, Nathan replied, his voice steely. We have the truth on our side, and the evidence to back it up. Peter grinned, a fierce expression. That we do. I've subpoenaed Ethan's teachers for character statements, and those financial records you found, pure gold. As they pored over their strategy, Nathan felt a mix of sadness and resolve. This wasn't how he had imagined his marriage ending. But he'd be damned if he'd let Emily's betrayal destroy him or harm Ethan. The legal battle raged for weeks. Emily and Bridget launched a media blitz, portraying Nathan as a cold, controlling husband who drove Emily into another man's arms. They conveniently omitted the fact that the other man was her married co-worker. Nathan maintained a dignified silence in public, letting Peter handle the press. In private, he focused on Ethan, ensuring his son felt secure and loved amid the chaos. One evening, as they prepared dinner in their new apartment, Ethan looked up from chopping vegetables. Dad, are you okay? I saw what they're saying about you on TV. Nathan set down his spatula, kneeling to meet Ethan's eyes. I'm fine, buddy. People say all sorts of things during divorces. What matters is that you know the truth. Ethan nodded solemnly. I do. Mom's lying. Again, the simple statement, delivered with such certainty, nearly broke Nathan's heart. He pulled Ethan into a hug, marveling at his son's resilience. The turning point came during a heated court session. Bridget was in rare form, painting Nathan as a workaholic who neglected his family. Emily sat beside her, the picture of a wronged woman, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Peter, let them talk themselves out. Then, with surgical precision, he began dismantling their case. First came Ethan's teachers. One by one, they testified to Nathan's active involvement in his son's life. Mrs. Carter, Ethan's math teacher, was particularly effusive. Mr. Reynolds attends every parent-teacher conference, volunteers for field trips, and even helps set up our new computer lab, she said. Meanwhile, I've never even met Mrs. Reynolds. Emily shifted uncomfortably in her seat as Bridget tried to spin the testimony, but it only got worse. Next came the financial records. Peter presented a damning trail of evidence showing how Emily had misused company funds to finance her affair with Ryan. Hotel receipts, plane tickets, expensive gifts, all charged to the corporate account. Your Honor, Peter said, his voice ringing with righteous indignation. Mrs. Reynolds didn't just betray her husband. She committed fraud against her employer to fund her infidelity. The judge's expression grew increasingly disgusted as the evidence mounted. By the time Peter rested his case, the outcome was clear. In light of the overwhelming evidence presented, the judge declared, I'm granting Mr. Reynolds' petition for divorce on the grounds of adultery. Furthermore, I'm awarding him primary custody of the minor child, Ethan Reynolds, with Mrs. Reynolds granted supervised visitation pending a full evaluation. Emily's wail of outrage was cut short by Bridget's hand on her arm. Nathan remained stoic, but inside, he felt a wave of relief. It was over. They had won. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed around them. Peter fielded most of the questions, but one persistent journalist managed to get Nathan's attention. Mr. Reynolds, how do you feel about the verdict? Nathan paused, considering his words carefully. I'm grateful that the truth has come to light. My only concern now is providing a stable, loving home for my son. With that, he strode away, leaving the media frenzy behind. There was still work to be done. The fallout from the divorce proceedings spread quickly. Emily and Ryan's company launched an internal investigation, horrified by the evidence of financial misconduct that had come to light during the trial. Ryan sat in the sterile conference room, facing a panel of grim-faced executives. His once immaculate suit was rumpled, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. Mr. Morgan, the CEO began, his tone icy. Would you care to explain these expenses? Ryan swallowed hard, his mind racing. He could throw Emily under the bus, claiming she had manipulated the accounts without his knowledge. But one look at the stack of evidence before him, and Ryan knew it was hopeless. I can explain, he began weakly. The CEO cut him off with a raised hand. Save it for the authorities, Mr. Morgan. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. As Ryan was led from the building, his personal effects in a cardboard box, he caught sight of Emily being escorted out as well. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of shared despair, before they were ushered into separate cars. Word spread quickly through professional circles. Ryan and Emily found themselves persona non grata, their reputations in tatters. Job applications went unanswered, and former colleagues crossed the street to avoid them. The price of their betrayal was steep indeed. Meanwhile, Nathan's career was on the rise. His flood control project, completed despite the personal turmoil, was hailed as a breakthrough in urban planning. At the project's unveiling, he stood tall, accepting accolades with quiet dignity. His boss, a gruff man not given to effusive praise, clapped him on the shoulder. Damn fine work, Reynolds. Don't know how you managed it with everything going on, but you pulled it off. Nathan nodded, allowing himself a small smile. Thank you, sir. I had good motivation to stay focused. The promotion came as no surprise to anyone but Nathan himself. As he settled into his new office, he felt a mix of pride and melancholy. He'd achieved a long-held professional goal, but the personal cost had been high. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Claire, a fellow engineer he'd worked with on the flood project. She smiled, holding up a bottle of champagne. Thought you might want to celebrate, she said. You've more than earned it. Nathan hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Come in. I could use a friend right now. As they talked, Nathan found himself drawn to Claire's warmth and intelligence. She listened without judgment as he opened up about the divorce, offering support without pushing for more than he was ready to give. Weeks turned into months. Nathan and Ethan settled into a new rhythm, their bond stronger for having weathered the storm together. Regular therapy sessions with Aunt Lillian helped Ethan process his feelings about the divorce and his mother's betrayal. Emily, desperate to salvage her relationship with her son, resorted to increasingly manipulative tactics. She showered Ethan with gifts, made grand promises, and even attempted to turn him against Nathan. After one particularly tense visitation, Ethan climbed into Nathan's car, his young face troubled. "Mom says you turned everyone against her," he said quietly, "that you're the reason she lost her job and can't see me more." Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel, but he kept his voice calm. "What do you think about that, buddy?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, with a wisdom beyond his years, he said, "I think Mom's still lying. She made her choices. You just told the truth." Nathan felt a surge of pride and love for his son. "That's right, Ethan. Sometimes the truth is hard, but it's always better than a lie." From that day on, Ethan began to distance himself from Emily, seeing through her attempts at manipulation. It hurt Nathan to see his son make such adult decisions, but he knew it was necessary for Ethan's emotional well-being. As summer turned to fall, Nathan found himself spending more time with Claire. Their relationship developed slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared values. Claire understood the importance of Ethan's well-being and never pushed to be more than Nathan was ready for. One crisp autumn evening, as they walked through the park after dinner, Claire turned to Nathan. "I've been offered a position on the West Coast," she said. "It's a great opportunity, but I'm not sure I want to leave." Nathan felt a pang of fear, followed by a surprising surge of hope. "What would make you want to stay?" he asked softly. Claire met his gaze, her eyes warm. "You and Ethan, if you'll have me." Nathan took her hand, a smile spreading across his face. "I think we like that very much." The culmination of Nathan's professional and personal journey came on a chilly winter evening. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as he took the stage to accept an award for his flood control project. As he gazed out at the crowd, he spotted Ethan in the front row, beaming with pride. Beside him sat Claire, her encouraging smile a balm to his soul. And there, at the back of the room, stood Emily. She had lost weight, her once designer outfit now shabby and ill-fitting. Her eyes met Nathan's, a mixture of bitterness and regret in her gaze. For a moment, Nathan felt a flicker of pity. Then he turned back to the podium, focusing on the future he had fought so hard to secure. "Thank you for this honor," he began. "This project was born of a desire to protect our communities from natural disasters. But along the way, I learned that the most important thing we can build is not a dam or a levee, but a foundation of integrity and resilience in our personal lives." As applause filled the auditorium, Nathan felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. Through intelligence, patience, and unwavering resolve, he had not only survived betrayal, but emerged stronger. With Ethan by his side and Claire in his life, he faced the future with hope and determination. Epilogue. 5 years had passed since the dust settled on the Reynolds divorce, the consequences of betrayal rippling through lives, reshaping destinies with the inexorable force of a flood. Emily Reynolds, once the epitome of corporate success, now worked as a checkout clerk at a discount store in a small town 3 states away. Her designer wardrobe had long since been sold to pay legal fees and back taxes. The woman who once sneered at bargain hunters now watched the clock, counting the minutes until her shift ended. She tried to rebuild her career, but doors slammed shut at the mere mention of her name. The scarlet letter of adultery and fraud followed her like a shadow. Her affair with Ryan had cost her everything: her job, her reputation, and worst of all, her relationship with Ethan. Despite her best efforts to manipulate and cajole, Ethan had chosen to severely limit contact. Their interactions were now restricted to strained monthly phone calls and the occasional supervised visit. Each time, Emily was struck by how much her son had grown, how little she knew him now. The distance between them was more than geographical. Ryan Morgan hadn't fared much better. The man who once swaggered through corporate hallways now hustled as a used car salesman in a rundown lot off the interstate. His charm, once an asset, now felt hollow as he tried to push rust buckets on desperate buyers. He'd attempted to reconcile with his wife, but she'd seen through his claims of temporary insanity. The divorce had been swift and brutal, leaving Ryan with little more than the clothes on his back and a mountain of debt. Occasionally, Ryan and Emily would connect on social media, exchanging bitter messages about the unfairness of it all. But these exchanges only left them feeling emptier, a reminder of how far they'd fallen and how much they'd lost. Meanwhile, Nathan Reynolds' life had taken a decidedly different trajectory. The flood control project that had been his lifeline during the darkest days of his marriage had led to a series of innovations. He was now recognized as a leading expert in urban water management, his expertise sought after by cities around the world. But it was his personal life that brought him the greatest satisfaction. His relationship with Claire had blossomed into a strong, loving partnership. They married in a small ceremony 2 years after the divorce, with Ethan proudly serving as best man. Claire had seamlessly integrated into their lives, her warmth and patience winning Ethan's trust and affection. She never tried to replace Emily, but carved out her own unique role in the family dynamic. Her support was invaluable as Ethan navigated the choppy waters of adolescence. Now 15, Ethan had grown into a thoughtful, resilient young man. The trauma of his parents' divorce had left its mark, but with therapy and the unwavering support of his father and Claire, he emerged stronger. He excelled in school, with a particular aptitude for environmental science, a fact that filled Nathan with quiet pride. Joanna, Nathan's sister, had become a vital part of their expanded family. Her expertise as a child psychologist was crucial in helping Ethan process his feelings about the divorce and his mother's betrayal. Sunday dinners at Joanna's house became a cherished tradition, filled with laughter and the warm glow of familial love. Casey Hopkins, the friend whose warning had set everything in motion, remained a steadfast presence in Nathan's life. He'd been best man at the wedding and was now Ethan's godfather. The bond forged in that moment of painful truth had grown into an unshakable friendship. Peter Franklin, the shrewd attorney who had guided Nathan through the legal minefield of his divorce, became more than just a lawyer. He was now a trusted advisor and friend. Nathan had recommended him to others facing similar challenges, and Peter's practice flourished as a result. Even Mrs. Carter, Ethan's former math teacher whose testimony had been crucial in the custody hearing, stayed in touch. She'd retired the previous year, but continued to tutor Ethan occasionally, marveling at the remarkable young man he was becoming. As for Bridget Hawthorne, Emily's cutthroat attorney, her aggressive tactics in the Reynolds divorce had backfired spectacularly. The exposure of her client's lies had damaged her credibility, and her practice suffered. She eventually shifted her focus to corporate law, finding boardroom battles less likely to blow up in her face than contentious divorces. On a warm spring evening, Nathan stood in the backyard of their new home, watching as Ethan and Claire set up for a barbecue. The sound of their easy laughter floated on the breeze, a testament to the healing power of time and love. His phone buzzed, a text from Casey confirming he was on his way. Joanna's car pulled into the driveway, loaded with homemade desserts. As twilight deepened, Nathan felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy him had instead become the catalyst for a richer, more authentic life. He had lost a wife but gained a true partner, and his relationship with Ethan, tested by fire, had emerged stronger and deeper. He had built a career centered on protecting others from disaster, a fitting metaphor for his personal journey. As he joined his family and friends, raising a glass in a toast to good company and brighter days ahead, Nathan Reynolds knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wouldn't change a single moment of the path that had led him here. The storm had long passed, and in its wake, he had built something beautiful and enduring. This is where our story ends. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel. Click on the next video on your screen, and I'll see you there. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye and see you into the next video.